Hello friends, and welcome to the woodlands of New Austin, where bandits and cowboys lurk on every single corner. In fact, we're in New Forest in Hampshire, actually, but you get the general idea. But we're not out here to showcase my mediocre cowboy skills. In fact, we're here to talk about a game series that, although it's been very short in its life cycle, everyone, and I mean everyone, is very excited to play Red Dead Redemption 2 when it releases this week. Welcome to the first of many video game documentaries from Total Gaming. This is the history of Red Dead Redemption. The Red Dead series, Rockstar's other major open world game, is a pretty popular one with fans today. Games that put you in the shoes of a cowboy in the Wild West is a pretty uncommon type of game nowadays when you come to think of it. And Red Dead has been seen as that different but great alternative to Rockstar's other big game that you may have heard of, Grand Theft Auto. But the Red Dead series didn't start off in the most typical of fashions though. It was actually the publisher Capcom that had the idea for Red Dead at first before the now developers Rockstar Games ever had a chance to have a go in the Wild West. Angel Studios, a development team based out of California, whose previous titles included Midnight Club, Smuggler's Run, Midtown Madness, and a Resident Evil port from PlayStation to Nintendo 64. The studio started working on a new idea with Capcom in the year 2000. Both Japanese and American teams set out on making a new IP that wanted to capture the Wild West feel for the PlayStation 2 era. After 2 years of talks and development time, Capcom first announced the game 2 years later, showing a trailer at E3 2002. The game was called Red Dead Revolver. Capcom's take on a western shooter was a bit different to say the least, with a trailer featuring over-the-top action, dynamic black bars on the screen, a heavy HUD system with icons nearly all over the screen, never-ending amount of ammo, a time limit during gameplay, and a character who could fly. It seemed like the game would be unique enough and perhaps have a more unrealistic over-the-top approach to the Wild West action genre, but it did seem rather odd. Capcom and Angel Studios would carry on working on the game in 2002, but both ran into issues on what the game should be. It seemed like the project was about to be canned. Rockstar Games and its parent owner Take-Two Interactive, having just come off the massive success story that was Grand Theft Auto Vice City, were now looking for a new project. Plans for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas were about to go into pre-production, but Rockstar wanted to try something else. They already had success with different titles such as Max Payne previously, and didn't want to be a one-trick pony going forward. Upon hearing about the creative struggles that Capcom and Angel Studios were running into, Rockstar had an idea. Angel Studios already helped Rockstar Games over the last 3 years to create titles such as Smuggler's Run, Midnight Club, and Midtown Madness, all impressive games at the time. Rockstar Games executive producer Sam Houser was quoted in saying, "I love Angel Studios, I'm not going to stop working with them." So Rockstar decided to do what seemed like the right idea. In November of 2002, Take-Two bought and acquired Angel Studios for an estimated $34.7 million. As part of the deal too, Rockstar looked over the work-in-progress projects that the now Rockstar San Diego had previously worked on. Rockstar were intrigued by the cowboy game, as they put it, but felt like it needed a big makeover. Rockstar San Diego would rebuild the new look and feel to Red Dead Revolver. 2 years years later, in May of 2004, Rockstar and Rockstar San Diego released what is known as the first game in the Red Dead series, Red Dead Revolver. The game's story centered around Red, a bounty hunter who looked to seek revenge on a gang that killed his parents when he was a young boy. The game was centered around levels rather than an open world game. Still, it was a third-person shooter nonetheless. Since the takeover from Rockstar happened, the Capcom version of Red Dead Revolver was completely wiped of its over-the-top action elements and heavy UI elements. Rockstar went for a more realistic version of the game and to add a bit more of a classic Western narrative to the game as well. This was also the first sightings of the bullet time mechanic called Deadeye. The game released on PlayStation 2 and Xbox to generally positive reviews, claiming it was a fresh and new take on a mostly limited line of Western shooter games. Rockstar had their small hole in the market and decided to cash in on it. The criticism of the game came in the form of how the single player mode played out, with having the player not just play as Red, but a whole host of other characters too. Reviewers felt like it could have told a better story without the need to play as other characters as well. Along with the single player, the multiplayer was also welcome, but the game failed to capitalize on the rise of online play, and the multiplayer was seen as a missed opportunity. While Red Dead Revolver did okay in terms of reviews and sales, Rockstar Games in 2005, however, had their sights set on a much bigger anticipated release. A year after Red Dead Revolver's release, Rockstar San Diego would begin development on the next game in the series, Red Dead Redemption. This time around, however, the team consisted of a much larger team of more than 800 people, including the main developers at Rockstar San Diego and other teams from Rockstar Studios around the world. Given a budget of between $80 and $100 million, which would have made it the most expensive video game of all time at the time, this was Rockstar's next big title they wanted to focus on. During the development time, the team would create the Rage or Rockstar Advanced Engine to create the game. The engine was created by a division of the Rockstar San Diego studio in order to bring future Rockstar games into the HD era, and was first used in Rockstar's infamous table tennis game. However, it was more notably used to create the biggest Grand Theft Auto game to date.
Welcome to America! Bravo, Barazzaru! Come in, come in!
This is the mansion?
The mansion is coming, cousin. That's the dream.
What do you mean?
We're going to the top, Nico. Soon, even you will forget about the old country.
The engine proved to work incredibly well in huge open world games, allowing for better graphical detail, bigger draw distances, better depth of field, and even more highly detailed weather effects. But while Rockstar North's Grand Theft Auto 4 was having all its success, Rockstar San Diego was still hard at work and excited about the development of its potential next big hit from Rockstar Games. Rockstar were upping the quality in a massive way this time around with Red Dead sequel, with a brand new engine, a huge open world experience, and advanced motion capture tech that was used to create the cutscenes. Rockstar also brought in musicians who specialised in Western music and instruments, as they felt that the music was a core part of the future player's experience in the Wild West.
Can you just do some like chords, some like two-note thirds, like moving, kind of like mariachi?
Then came the time to assemble the main protagonist in this grand Western adventure. During the time of Red Dead Redemption's development, a wannabe actor, Rob Wiedoff, just left Indiana University to move to Los Angeles after being convinced by many people in LA that he could get some major up-and-coming acting roles.
Being from a small town, all you hear about big cities is how dangerous they are and how everybody's out to get you. So I called my ex-girlfriend, called her and said, I'm going to LA, and I know that you made friends when you lived out there. These girls turned out to be girlfriends and good friends of Matthew McConaughey, Vince Vaughn, and over the course of the week that I was there, they really kind of convinced me that I could be a movie star. I'd move out there, they'd introduce me to their boyfriends would put me in their movies, and I had no idea how it worked, but I thought, those guys can probably make that happen, so maybe I'll try it out, whatever. I didn't plan I didn't know what I was doing. And really, if I did know what I was getting myself into, I probably wouldn't have done it. That whole idea of just come out here and our boyfriends will put you, that didn't ever really happen at all.
Rob was in his early 30s and he was now stuck in LA by himself with no acting prospects and little hope for the future. He was left working as a bartender and never received his big break, only small roles in television and commercials. Rob's big LA acting dream move seemed to be coming to an end. In December of 2008, while driving home, he received a call from his agents.
I got a call from my agent, hey, you booked that Untitled video game project. And I said, oh, really? All right. I'm not a gamer. I've never really been much of a gamer, and that eventually surfaced throughout the first couple weeks of shooting because they would keep referring to GTA for different things. Remember in GTA when so-and-so did this and whatever? And I go, yeah. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And then finally, Rod Edge, the director, was like, did you ever play GTA? And I was like, I might have. I don't know what it is. And he was like, I knew it! Oh! And then everybody was like, what? No way! And of course they didn't care. They just thought it was so funny that I was trying to pretend, because I didn't want to offend anybody or upset them or maybe be like, well, we can't have you be the guy because you don't know what you're doing. They just were like, you're doing a good job, so we're gonna run with it and make this work. It was awesome. The whole experience was.
Despite his previous luck, Rob had won the role of former outlaw and lead protagonist John Marston. Rob began motion capturing and voice acting in 2009. The stage was set for Rockstar's next big hit, and in May of 2010, after 5 years of development, Red Dead Redemption was finally released to the world.
I rode in a gang. They left me to die after I'd been shot. I left the gang after the gang left me. I tried to go straight. I did. Then I got me more trouble.
After years of hard work, Red Dead Redemption was a huge critical success for Rockstar Games. Red Dead Redemption sold over 11 million copies in its first year and a half, and the company had themselves a hit as big as their other open world counterpart series, Grand Theft Auto. Red Dead Redemption was the biggest game to date, with a huge cast, a huge world to explore, improved animations, and satisfying gunplay and action. The game saw John Marston, a former outlaw, looking to redeem himself of his shady former past by bringing his old gang to justice. Unlike Red Dead Revolver, Red Dead Redemption had a much improved story and emotional impact than its previous entry, with Rob Wiedoff receiving widespread praise for his role as John and a game-ending performance that will live in gamers' minds for years. Even after the huge success of the game, Rob would meet his now wife during the development of the game and move away from LA, back home, to focus on his family. He never pursued any major acting roles after the release of the game, despite his widespread praise. Red Dead Redemption won several Game of the Year awards, and still to this day was voted one of the best games of the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. One of the, if not the most beautiful and most detailed video games of that generation.
The winner of Game of the Year is Red Dead Redemption!
Joshua Bass. Red Dead Redemption also wins the awards for Best Original Score, Best Song in Game, and Best DLC.
Rockstar will go on to release an unexpected standalone DLC game in time for Halloween called Undead Nightmare, which also received huge praise for its B-movie take on zombie movies set in the Wild West. It was unexpected, but it was enjoyed by many fans. Overall, Red Dead Redemption was a well-deserved and terrifically huge success story. It wasn't until after the game's release that, behind the scenes, unknown to everyone else, that things were not all that they seemed. In 2007, one of Red Dead Redemption's game's artists, known as Zero Dean, was hard at work on the game, among many others. It wouldn't come to light until after the release of the game. However, in 2010, Dean published an article on his personal blog called My Life at Rockstar Games. He went on to point out that his requests for better learning materials were ignored, how after his first year in the company he started to notice the higher up bosses started freaking out about how long the game was in development, how much money was being wasted, and how the big bosses had put strict deadlines on the game. Dean was working at the San Diego branch, and what started as a new promising relationship with over 800 people working on a huge project turned into questionable working conditions. The situation at Rockstar only got worse. Hours increased from 8 to 12, and days increased from 5 to 6. Anyone on a salary was not compensated for additional hours. As far as our paychecks were concerned, we were still only putting in 40 hours a week. Morale continued to deteriorate as the lies increased, and everyone was on edge, and we were being spoken in meetings like incompetent 10-year-olds. It's not just Dean that seemed to be affected by this. Many came out soon after the game's release to say it was like a gun being held to their head. What was interesting was that there was a Californian law to abstain from paying overtime for any work exceeding 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week. Dean claimed that not only were the employees not receiving overtime pay, they may not have been receiving compensation for working over 40 hours a week. Dean remained at Rockstar San Diego after the release of Red Dead Redemption. However, he left after a particular incident caused him to be pushed out. But it wasn't until my boss took credit for my work and politely argued with me about who actually created it. I had the original documents on my desktop. I went back to my desk and started cleaning it. I then realized I wasn't cleaning it, I was packing. I was pretty upset with him over that for a while, but I realized now he deserved my thanks. He pushed me out of hell. And thank you, Rockstar. You taught me exactly how I don't want to run a business or treat employees or human beings ever. It just goes to show that even an extremely well received game has its fair share of development problems too. Rockstar San Diego, despite the claims and many layoffs of former employees, would continue working on games after Red Dead Redemption. They would work with Team Bandai to produce the 2001 detective game LA Noire, and in 2002 for Max Payne 3. Although both games never hit the heights that Red Dead Redemption managed. In 2002, Rockstar San Diego began hiring staff again, posting job descriptions that included the skill to get the most out of the next-gen console and to create a game with open-world elements, state-of-the-art visuals, and dynamic multiplayer. With many thinking it was a possible Red Dead sequel, it was in fact the most successful open-world game of all time. Rockstar San Diego and Rockstar North worked on Grand Theft Auto 5 to provide players with an open world experience like never before. Still using the Rage engine that the San Diego studio built, the game was Rockstar's biggest success story to date, selling over 100 million copies on the PS3, Xbox 360, and from ports a year later on the next-gen consoles Xbox One, PS4, and also the PC, making Rockstar over 6 billion in sales and counting. That's the most a video game has ever made in history. And after a slow start, Grand Theft Auto Online is still a hugely popular online mode that still makes Rockstar money every hour through its microtransactions. From 2013 onwards, Grand Theft Auto Online seemed to be Rockstar's main focus. There was no release in a long time for Rockstar, which seemed odd, not even for a side project. Many players predicted a Red Dead sequel must be in the works, but there was no news from Rockstar San Diego or Rockstar themselves. Soon after the release of Grand Theft Auto 5, rumours spread that a PS4 remaster was in the works for Red Dead Redemption, but nothing came of it. In October of 2016, Rockstar announced Red Dead Redemption 2 to the world. In standard Rockstar fashion, they kept it secret for years. This time around, Rockstar would not just use the San Diego team to create Red Dead Redemption 2, but every studio they had working on this game as a single team. That's 9 teams in total spread over the globe. It would undoubtedly be Rockstar's biggest project to date.
Listen to me. When the time comes, you gotta run and don't look back. This is over.
The game, as expected, was delayed, twice in fact, but finally gamers would get their hands on the game on October 26, 2018. Red Dead Redemption 2 is set before the events of Red Dead Redemption, which has you play as Arthur Morgan, a member of the Vandalier gang, John Marston's former gang. The game features a young John Marston, and after previously leaving the games industry for good, Rob came back to voice the legendary character once again. Rockstar have promised this to be an open world experience like never before, and others who are lucky enough to play early tend to agree.
And what all that does is sort of create a game feel that isn't just you going around, doing the main objective or doing the things the game tells you to do, but feels more like being pushed in different directions by the choices you make and by the stuff that kind of happens. The missions themselves, the main missions, at least the ones I saw, felt like scripted missions you play in any open world game. But sort of stepping back from that, it's the broader sense of how the game plays out feels a lot less like going from A to B and more getting distracted and doing C, D, and E, and then having the things you did in those things impact B.
The game is to feature 200 animal species, 192 unique musical scores, and amazingly 500,000 lines of dialogue. A feat that has never been heard of before in any game to this date. However, while filming this documentary, old news became current news again. In Vulture magazine, Rockstar co-founder Dan Houser let it slip that his team had been working 100-hour weeks to finish this game. Dan was quick to clear up that he never expected people to work that hard, and people only do it out of pure passion for the project. However, many stories, just like with Red Dead Redemption, started coming out, telling the opposite of that side of the story. Unfortunately, this is what happens when the world's biggest game studio is in charge, working on the biggest game in what could be years under a company that has previously been slammed for its working conditions. It seems like this was bound to happen. A conversation certainly needs to happen on why this is allowed to happen in the industry, as it's pure toxic. Deadlines in video games are a huge problem and a big deal for big bosses of companies. They want their game out by a particular time, in this case the run up to Christmas, else they won't be happy. But is overworking your employees the way to approach that? In any other industry, it's most likely seen as threatening, especially since this isn't the first time this has happened, and Rockstar Games have been at the center of it. While the comments about Rockstar's working conditions are rightfully questioned, one thing is for sure: Red Dead Redemption 2 could be Rockstar's most ambitious title to date. Remember, this is actually Rockstar's first next-gen title when you come to think of it. Grand Theft Auto 5 was made for last-gen consoles and was only ported to the next generation. This game has had the time to be tested and developed on the current-gen hardware for years, and you can be sure that it would use every bit of power the consoles have. It may have taken 8 years for a sequel, and the way Rockstar have approached development is questionable, but one thing is for sure: Red Dead Redemption 2 looks like it will be worth the wait, and another huge title for Rockstar Games, and their legacy as one of the most successful makers of video games today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the history of Red Dead Redemption until now. I hope you all enjoy the game when it comes out on October 26th, and I hope you enjoy the future documentaries we'll have on Total Gaming in the near future. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.